Hello everyone, and welcome to my very first video on my channel in the new year of 2019. And as I promised, we're going to talk about the LG V40 today and my thoughts about it. Now, unfortunately, because I was sick for a little while, I wasn't able to put out a video last week. But these are going to be my week 2 and week thoughts of the LG V40, and quite honestly, it's why it's still in my pocket right now, and I want to use it every single day. The first thing that I absolutely love about the LG V40 is the display. I talked about this on my last video over on XDA Developers channel, but the display is really good. It's unlike LG displays in the past where we had issues with color banding, brightness issues, hotspots. Pretty much you name it, those displays had those issues, but this one's not showing any of them. If I had a complaint about the display, it has to do with smearing issues, and it's not the typical light to dark smearing issues. It actually happens on like dark to dark, so a dark gray on a black background. I have a video clip showing here where it happens in the Twitter app, and if you look closely, you can actually see how far delayed the dark scrolling gets because of those banding issues. The dark gray to black color pixel response time is pretty bad on this display. Outside of that though, it gets plenty bright. I live down here in Florida, and even though it's January, we've had some pretty hot days with full sun, and I never have a problem seeing this phone in broad daylight with no issues. I can't say that about my Google Pixel. I can't say that about my OnePlus 6. The only phones I can really say that about are the iPhone XS Max and the Galaxy Note 9, which I currently don't have anymore. One of the other things that I absolutely love about the LG V40 is actually its software. Now, I was really harsh on the software in the last video, and it's still not perfect, but LG's enhancements to the software aren't really that much, and some of the enhancements they do make are really beneficial. One thing I love is when I have my Bluetooth headphones connected, it shows up here in the notification shade and allows me to toggle between audio going out to my car or my headphones and the device itself. Another feature I love is when you have wired headphones plugged in here and the Hi-Fi DAC enabled, you get 75 steps of audio control. This is awesome. And I love that it's not always enabled. There are times I want to drop my volume really quick when I have the device normal, and you get your typical 14 or so steps. But when your headphones are plugged in, you get a lot of granular control to get the audio exactly where you want it. Now, if I had to knock that for something, it's that it doesn't work while you're connected to Bluetooth. I wish that was something they would enable because it's really essential, and I wish that was something Google put in Android stock. It's a really nifty little feature. Another thing I really love about my LG V40 is the haptic feedback motor. Now, this motor is not on par with what you'd get out of an iPhone, but it is pretty darn spectacular, and the enhancements that LG added throughout the UI are fantastic. If you dismiss a notification, you get a nice little buzz. Scrolling through the clock, a nice little buzz. You get nice taps. I use the fluid navigation gestures because I really hate the 3 buttons and the way it turns white with a black keyboard. It's really terrible. But when I swipe up, it's just a nice little tap on my phone, and it just feels really good. It feels a lot better than Samsung sensors, way better than my OnePlus sensors, and is right there with the Google Pixel and the iPhone. If I had to choose between the Google Pixel and this one, I would probably say this is a better sensor or a better motor because it's better placed throughout the UI, whereas Google's are kind of haphazardly placed and quite boring, to be honest. Now we get to some things I'm a little iffy about with this device. The cameras being the top. Now don't get me wrong, you can get some great photos out of the LG V40. The thing is they're not consistent. I've gotten more blurry pictures out of the LG V40 than I've gotten on any other device. And that's not just in indoor lighting. I've even gotten blurry shots outdoors when a phone should be using a shutter speed that shouldn't cause any kind of blur. But the LG V40 has it. I've also noticed that there's a weird magenta or reddish hue that can sometimes happen to my photos, and it really happens when there's skin tones with my kids. Now this occurs with both AI enabled and disabled, and it'll be there in one shot and the next shot it won't. So it really tells me it's down to LG's processing that really needs to be fixed. I also really don't like that the wide angle sensor does not feature autofocus. One of the things I was really hoping to do with the wide-angle sensor is get some cool macro shots of flowers and stuff, but it's just not possible to do on this phone because you can't get close enough to your macro subject and have it focus. It's a disappointment and a letdown, but it looks like LG is not alone in that, and the Samsung Galaxy S10 looks to have a non-autofocusing wide-angle sensor as well, so they're not alone here. Huawei, on the other hand, does have an autofocusing sensor, and it's a good improvement I'd like to see in the next LG V series phone. Now, on the flip side of the camera, I absolutely love the video camera. It is fantastic, and the manual video camera is something that every person should at least take some time to play with. The 21:9 aspect ratio recording is beautiful in this kind of a display, and I really love the audio that gets output through the device as well. I have had an issue, and I'll see if you guys have this issue as well, where I can't play back the audio in the Google Photos app recorded in the manual mode with the high def recording on, so I'm not quite sure what the problem is, if it's an LG problem or a Google problem, but it does work in the stock gallery without issue. Another thing that's middle of the road on the LG V40 that I've found so far is battery life. Now, don't get me wrong, I've had days where I can go the entire day without problem, and then I'll have days where by like 6:30, I'm already getting my 15% notification. The worst problem, though, is when you hit 15%, 5% will come up before you realize it. Some devices actually slow down when you get 15% to 5% without changing any settings in the UI, as if it's giving you a little bit extra percentage than you really know, but not the LG V40. There are times where I'll see the 15% notification, dismiss it, go on my way, and a little while later, bam, 5% my screen goes dim. That's something that I really wish was fixed, and the only way to truly fix it is with a bigger battery. The Note 9 has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, and we've seen some Huawei devices up there as well. There's no reason this can't have a bigger cell than the one that's currently got, and with the Galaxy S10 Plus having 4,000 milliamp hours, this is going to really start falling behind shortly. Performance is another area that is just not where I expected it to be on this phone. There are times where I'll get stutters and slowdowns in my Reddit app or even just scrolling around the general UI. Now, I do use the fluid navigation gestures, but even with them off, I'll still notice where the phone will just start losing frames for no reason, like as if something is running. Now, I found out that the overlay that I was talking about in the last video on XDA developers was actually due to this second screen notch up here. It's like as if it's rendering the entire second screen in addition to the main one at all times. Now, this is really annoying considering the fact that the LG second display on this, or new second screen or whatever it's called, doesn't actually do anything outside of LG applications. Most Android applications now are built to overflow into the status bar, and it just doesn't do anything. There's no need for that to exist, but it still causes some performance issues, which is really disappointing. And on the standpoint of software, there are some useless features on this phone, like that floating bar. I was meeting with a friend of mine, and we were talking about the floating bar and the contextual awareness and everything like that. A lot of this stuff just really isn't needed. And with this floating bar, you'll see it over here on the top left corner of the display. It looks like as if you're supposed to swipe in on it, but that's not actually how it works. You're supposed to tap on it to get it to pop out. It's just poor UI, and it really doesn't add a whole lot to the phone itself. I'd just rather see a lot of this stuff disappear off this phone and make the software perform faster and maybe even get our updates on a faster pace. So my week 2 and week 3 thoughts on this device are really, really positive. It's a device I see staying in my pocket for a very long time, only to be moved out when I do my S10 long-term review. I think this is going to be one of those phones that I keep all of my devices, all of my accounts, all of my email addresses, and all of my applications signed into because I know I can pick it up, it's going to give me a great experience, and it's not going to let me down. There are few phones I can honestly say that about. My OnePlus 6T is too slippery, and the fingerprint sensor is more of a gimmick. Samsung, Huawei, and Sony with the Xperia XE3 are all doing that curved edge thing that really does not lead to a really good user feel or experience, especially when you're trying to type or drag in from the side. And the Google Pixel, I'm sorry, I just don't like it. But this phone, for all of its faults, is really, really good, and I'm looking forward to doing my full camera review and finishing my full review on this phone. So if you've enjoyed this video, be sure to leave it a like and a thumbs up. And if you like this style where we just talk about the device, please let me know in the comments and I'll keep it up and try not to change it up too much for the next time. If you're not yet subscribed, please go ahead and do so, and be sure to check me out on XDA TV as well, where we have some great videos like the Android Q exclusive hands-on that I did just a few days ago. I'll see you in the next one, and I'm Daniel Marchena.